Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. Today, we're going to talk to Paul Jarrett about his tech-enabled logistics company that provides 5PL services at 3PL rates and empowers CPG brands to store, pack, and ship orders through unlimited sales channels, packaging options, and packing configurations. We'll even explain what those acronyms mean for those of you who don't know. I think I'm going to have to ask what 5PL means.
There you go.
But before I introduce Paul, this episode is brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions, Inc. And hey, I've been in the logistics and storage industry for several decades, and I know I don't look that old, but it's true. We provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So basically, if you have a warehouse that needs rack, shelving, carts, conveyors, and mezzanines, we'll help with the design, engineering, installation, inspections, and repairs to help our clients optimize their logistics operation. And it's funny, Paul, sometimes people don't even realize we can actually help with permit acquisition services. So we take a holistic look at your entire business supply chain ecosystem, the resources. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you do the stuff to put the stuff on.
The stuff to put the stuff. Yeah. And
there you go. Yeah.
So Paul, and I had to thank Jeremy Weiss, Rise 25 introduced me to today's guest. Rise 25 specializes in helping B2B businesses reach their Dream 100 clients using a podcast. And based on today's guest, it looks like it's working for us.
There you go.
So Paul
Dr. J, shouts to Dr. J.
Dr. J, yeah, and I think we're the only two people that call him Dr. J, but
he's the other have to deal with that. Mark, you have a phenomenal voice for podcasting. And you don't have a voice, the face for podcasting. What are you doing? You should be on television. Like, I'm like intimidated. I'm like, oh man.
So I do have a face for podcasting, but so Paul, let me introduce you, Paul. Paul is a fulfillment freak and celebrated Midwest entrepreneur with a remarkable track record of launching over 100 consumer packaged good programs and more than 50 subscription and gift box programs for giants like American Express, BuzzFeed, Clorox, and Disney. Paul's expertise is unparalleled. Now, as part owner and CEO of Bulu, a trailblazing woman-owned logistics business, Paul is reshaping the future for consumer packaged goods brands. Right now, with their hybrid hub-and-spoke logistics model, it's a game changer that empowers brands with unlimited sales channels, packing, and packaging options. They like to call it the tricky ship. Paul, welcome to Tao Pizza.
Thanks, man. Thank you for having me, and thanks to everybody listening out there.
Yeah.
I gotta start out the gate and say I'm nervous. I got people zipping around on scooters behind me. For anybody not watching, we got the warehouse is right behind me, so they're doing the tricky ship right now. See how many rules they break.
And you can see I love your background because this is the only time where we've had a live running warehouse. Plus, you're sitting it looks like you're sitting in a modular office. I don't mention in the ads. We also supply those.
There you go. The stuff to put your own stuff in.
Yeah. So this is great.
Yeah, it's been like such an interesting transition, and just trying to communicate to people like we're here, we're on the floor, and it's been it's quite a shift going from like selling software to doing this, and can't wait to share more with you.
Yeah. So I wanted to get in a little bit about your background, how you got there, but since we're going to be talking about the 5PL and 3PL, share a little bit about what that means to what's a 5PL. Like, I'm pretty sure I know what a 4PL and 3PL is a public warehouse.
Yeah.
But, and then CPG is consumer packaged goods. I knew that one.
Man, it's so annoying in this industry with all the acronyms. We've been doing it for probably 12 years, and probably I would say within the last 3 years, I just started buying the textbooks, and there that epiphany moment of like, oh wow, receiving means 100 different things to 100 different people. SKUs can actually mean different things to different people, and it's one of those things where I always feel like logistics isn't complicated, but it's complex and it requires your attention, and that oftentimes is confused with complexity. And what I tell people is, the way that we view it, I have a water bottle right here, and we just kind of view it as you have a physical product and then you have a digital version of that. And in linear shipping, people kind of like set it up where, they've been doing it the same way for hundreds of years. Like, here is the product right on paper. It goes from point A to point B, boom, we're done. And it's just shocking where when we started our company over 10 years ago, we actually started with a consumer packaged good. And we figured that, oh, the software will be there or these things will be there. And it's like over a decade later and it never came, And
Yeah.
so now I just say, like, really, what is logistics in modern day? It is the physical version and the digital or the ghost version. And no matter where it goes, point A, point B, point C, D, E, F, back to point A, as long as those two things, the digital and physical information of the product, stay together, like anybody can kind of do what we're doing. But it's just phenomenal how much acronyms and software in traditional ways, and frankly, like intimidation, because people don't want to change. If it ain't broke, don't fix, right?
Yeah.
Don't fix it. That is like this industry, right? And but we broke it and we broke it down, and we think we have something pretty cool. And the whole 3PL to 5PL, that's like right out the textbook where I go, which I did not read at all in college. So I did the football thing, so I had to go get a few of those. But we kind of view it as, and this is, I would love to have like a open debate or whatever with anybody about this. And so far, we haven't been pressed by it with like industry professionals, because we did run this messaging by a lot of like people that study this stuff, that teach this stuff. And we're like, we want to make sure we're not, overstepping. And I would say, 3PL for the most part, right? You got to take all this with a grain of salt, because it's like, what textbook, what era did you study in? The way that we view it is, 3PL is three things: store, pack, ship, right? When you add something on either side of that, like let's say before the storing, some manufacturing, or after the shipping, some distribution channels, now you have like a 4PL. Add another layer onto that, it's a 5PL. And so what we see is, we could probably go up to 8PL for what we do, but we do get involved with the manufacturing and in many different ways if we need to. We got a client right now that it was a flour-based good. And being in Lincoln, Nebraska, we literally walked 50 feet over to the warehouse next to us that does packaged flour baked goods. And it was a pancake mix. And we're able to get it for way less money and kind of manage that part. And really the interesting thing is we're doing like unlimited sales channels. So that's really the thing that's disruptive. And with the unlimited sales channels, for our clients that work with us and do fulfillment through us, they can add Etsy, TikTok, Instagram, Walmart, Target, like B2B, D2C. It doesn't really matter, because honestly, after a decade of working with some of the biggest brands in the world, one of the reasons that we've fought really hard to acquire the company fully is that we wanted to offer this thing to every consumer packaged goods brand, right? Like, we really view us as like, we are evening the playing field, because we've seen what Disney, what American Express, what GNC, what they have and how much money. And, I joke about this with them as our clients. I'm like, well, thanks for funding us to be able to offer this to everybody else. And they're like, no, it's all like, go get it. Like, so yeah, we just came out with that messaging not too long ago. And boy, there's a couple big blips for clients that signed on. And the coolest thing is I've never had partners go like spread the word about us as much as they have. And so that's just been phenomenal. So we're just kind of cranking up the volume on that a little bit. And hybrid hub and spoke logistics versus traditional linear fulfillment is we underestimated what a big deal that was for people.
And it's the technology that allows you to do the hub and spoke, because like you said, wherever that goes,
Hmm.
you don't have to watch that product get on the dock, get onto a FedEx truck or UPS
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
You can and people can ship from, multiple locations, I guess. So it doesn't have to
Yeah.
actually physically come to your warehouse.
Yes.
You just
There's a few current shippers that popped up in the pandemic, I'll say. I kind of say ship blank, fill in whatever word after that, right?
yeah,
And we understand totally what they're doing, and there's a time and place in the market for that. But what I would say is a lot of those are kind of like the Uber for fulfillment, like the Uber to get your consumer package good where it needs to
yeah,
go. They say, well, like sometimes there's like really bad Uber drivers, and what do you do when the Uber driver has your product in it and your software? And so we will only connect with like vetted third-party fulfillment storage places that we usually get down on the ground level and go check them out, and our client knows. And that's a big difference, because when those places popped up, kind of we didn't sign up for them because we filled out the forms and we're like, whoa, that's all it took. Yeah, like Bubba down in Alabama is about to, fill out 100 of those. So
and
I was
that's
like,
the
man, I've inventory management issues are hard enough, let alone chasing your product down. Yeah, so it's been good. It's really cool. It's fun what we're doing right now. We're like helping brands grow through logistics. It's wild.
Yeah, and I would say that 5 part of the 3PL is the fact that you are doing multiple sales channels, because I've
Yeah.
thought about this a lot, and we're serving a lot of 3PL. Like, it's one of our best clients because things are constantly changing.
Mhm.
Is that there's really only one company who allows people to do that, and I'm not sure it's the best company to be doing business with. And I'm like, I wonder
Right?
when other companies are going to get this idea of because there's so much power in being able to. What were the ones you mentioned? Etsy, Shopify. So one person.
TikTok, Instagram, Target, Walmart, the independent local chains are the ones that have been the biggest lift for our partners. So that's cool.
And that's great to empower
Yeah.
them to be on the same
Mhm.
platform where people can order from their local purveyor or
Yep.
from anywhere. They don't have to worry as an entrepreneur. It's like, well, I have orders coming from all these different directions. I can't even process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you
It's a
guys
beast.
streamline that.
Yeah, it's a beast for sure.
Nice, nice. So I like this saying called "Start with the why." So I looked at your website and I love this. And explain what you mean by your passion is the 5-way win, which
Yeah.
create opportunities for consumers, clients, coworkers, co-owners, and community to all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
share a little bit about that. I love that.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is I got to work directly with Simon Sinek on that. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I was giving a presentation, and then I was the keynote, and probably the day before I got a call and they said, sorry, we got somebody else. And I was like, are you kidding me? And they're like, well, it's Simon Sinek. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. Can I come and watch him?
Yeah,
So it worked out, right? And yeah, but my co-founder, who happens to be my spouse, I think is the way she would prefer me to say it. Yeah. No more, it's 2024. We can't say my wife, because
yeah,
if you're around here, she runs the show. I just happen to be the guy that's dumb enough to put my name on everything, right?
yeah, yeah,
No. So she, really does run the day to day. And when we were in the process of deciding whether to buy the company out fully or not, we really kind of went back to some of our old materials, and kind of, you just have that moment where you're like, what are we doing this for? Do we want to do it only if we do it our way? And we kind of went back to the like, why did we get into this whole thing? And the interesting thing is, we've never been like obsessed with a product. We've never been obsessed with a service. I mean, if you look, we grew a CPG company, we built the software and sold it, and we've always struggled. But if you do look to both of our backgrounds and kind of the families we come from big, big sports families, and it is all about the team, right? And we know that if you can create a winning situation or opportunity for the right team, like you'll win every time, you know.
Yeah.
And so we really focus on that 5-way win, and we are very specific in the order and how it went. And we just know that for us and for our team, if there's a challenging decision to make, or even, you know, we have some really great opportunities that come our way. If it doesn't check the box in any of those 5 categories, the answer is easy. We're not going to do it. Now, caveat, sometimes, you know, the coworkers might get a better opportunity than the community, right? But it's kind of like make sure nobody gets screwed in the process, right? Like if our company was to be acquired, which we're not really that interested in anymore, but if it were, yeah, everybody's got their price, and it was to move out of the community, I can't really say that we would probably do it, right?
Yeah.
Or if it was a dollar amount that we could give back to the community. So that's just like a gut check. And the interesting thing is it helped us solve a lot of the friction between us because and investors, because you could tell after a decade of working with a board and with everybody, like, you know, there was one side that was like grow like crazy, and there's another side that's like just do the right thing and the growth will take care of itself, right? And, you know, me, I was the one kind of like flip-flopping, like, well, the growth and scale is fun. We know how to do that, but like a stable foundation and just doing things the right way. And really, it was a great exercise to go through that. And it's just so easy to go. If it's good for all those parties involved and doesn't hurt them, like we're probably in. So it clarifies a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah. And in the community, what are some things? I was just laughing because I changed my background. I used to have a sports memorabilia, uh,
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys, because I'm a Cowboys fan. It's a bad time of year
Yep.
to admit that right now. But I put up we sponsored the Pinole Seals swim team, and
Yeah.
I saw they brought us a plaque and everything. I'm like, well, I'm putting that plaque. I'm like, the Cowboys is coming down, and I'm
Yeah.
putting the
Yeah.
Pinole swim team. I'm like, these guys are dominating, and it's 7 9-year-olds. But we've supported the community in ways.
Yeah.
It's funny. I always looked at it as giving back, but I've gotten way more out of it. Coaching sports,
Yeah.
high sports,
Yeah.
being involved in the community. I get more out of it. So we're always
Yeah.
looking for those opportunities.
That's like the secret is like, it ends up feeling almost, for me at least, like selfish, right? Because everybody's giving you
Yeah,
praise and like, oh, you did this thing or whatever. You're like, dude, I feel good about it. Like this is for me,
yeah,
like
yeah,
meeting with entrepreneurs or helping out companies, and they're like, oh, I can't believe you spent so much time. I'm like, no, this is a welcome, opportunity to help somebody else out and just, go help somebody else out. But one of the things that we did pretty early on, which still just shocks me, we found out in Lincoln, Nebraska, we were the number one producer of cardboard waste. And, I was looking at the numbers and I was like, how are we paying this much money to get garbage and trash taken out? And so we went to the number 2 and 3, big city cardboard producers, and we went, this is crazy. What do we do? Somebody's like, let's go talk to the mayor. And it was probably about a year-long process. But some people in the community might not think this is a win, but we helped establish Lincoln's recycling program, which, you definitely I got a bit of hate mail of, now I have to put these dang trash cans out front. I was like, man, I thought
yeah,
people were going to be like, let's go,
yeah,
about time.
yeah,
Uh, but that was a big win for the community because one, everybody should be taken care of. Leave things better than you found them, right?
yeah.
Also, like just a lot of businesses now are producing enough to actually make a little bit of money. And so that's just one of those things where we could have easily looked the other way. We could have easily, but we just dug in a little bit and spent a little bit of time. And overall is a win for, most people, right? But there's definitely some friction of trash cans, but I'm sure it was coming anyway, whether we spearheaded it or not.
Yeah, it's so we're from California, so it's always been the cutting edge. So are
I
you
used to
talking
live in
about
San Francisco. Yeah, I get it.
are you talking about going from like the round metal trash cans to
No,
having
man.
like three different ones? with the
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it was like one giant smelly trash can, and then just a green one was added next to it, and
yeah,
it was like, I mean, we were bringing in big brands, and we had these companies, like Disney's lugging around a bag full of trash, and I'm like, what is that? And they're like, do you have recycling? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you get to the airport, and like, it's like, well, all the stereotypes of like the Podunk Nebraskan is fulfilled. Like in that instant, I'm like, come on, like,
yeah,
like, but that's just, nobody spirited that. So it's things like that that we always try to focus on.
yeah,
And, of course we do like sponsorships and whatever, but it's always fascinating to me the things that mean the most. We win a lot of culture awards, we win a lot of stuff. And I say, like, number one, it's not like Amazon warehouse where people are dying in it, like that's
yeah,
crazy. Number two, like I grew up in a trailer park in Nebraska, and like I get it. Like sometimes like you got to just take the job or do the thing, and I've packed plenty of boxes in my life, right? And to go back in your mind and just go like, man, what's some of the things that I would have wanted? Well, pretty much to just be treated like a human. Okay, like what does that actually mean? Well, why does we call it the back office, the people that, mostly at the desk, it's like, well, why does the back office get to be late to take their kids to a dental appointment, but somebody else gets docked pay or whatever? And you're like, man, that's messed up. And it's just like such an awakening a couple years in where I'm like, you know what? Like, get rid of the security card clearance. Like, we want everybody to, whatever, use the same areas. Why is the nice restroom for the back office like this? Not only is that messed up, but also that helps efficiency. And there's a lot of things that come with that as far as like a managerial thing. I mean, we had to get a lot of new managers, but what I would say is the HR issues that a lot of people experience doing what we do, 250 people packing, it's very low because that mentality, although you never quite shake it, but the mentality of a lot of like, oh, people are out to get me or whatever when they're working on the line, or if I'm late once, I'm fired. We kind of have 8 different classifications now for people who work. We just call it like on the floor. We call it back office or on the floor. And I think just doing that and recognizing that, it's just been phenomenal. And it's something that's hard to keep if you scale super quickly. But I think it's something that is just embedded in who we are as people. And as we do continue to grow, that'll be a big focus, because if you take care of your team, um, you know, everything has a way of taking care of itself. And it's like that thing where you go, we always say like the people, the work, the work. Like that's really what it boils down to, and if you don't have those two things really strong, like it's a house of cards. You're just waiting for it to, something bad to happen.
yeah. And the people who, people do need to take their kids. One of my best friends owns a 3PL here in Northern California. He said that's one of the differences between them and other places,
Yeah.
is they let their, people get off early to take care of those kids. But he said those people come in early. Those people get their work done on time. Those people are accountable.
Yep.
You never have to ask them twice.
Yeah.
So it
Yep.
is, like I said, it is a win-win. I love the win-win. And is Simon
The
Sinek,
five
did he write a
win.
book? He wrote a book called Start With Why. Is that why you said?
Simon Sinek did. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
so that's what I knew. I had heard it. I haven't read that,
Yeah.
but I've seen a lot of his stuff, and I just love that. Uh, to start with why. So share
Yeah.
a little bit about how you got started. I mean, what did this start out? Like, share a little bit more about what this company
Yeah.
started. I saw a picture on your website which showed like a bedroom with a stack of boxes, and then a medium sized
Yeah.
warehouse, and then now it's like this huge distribution center.
Yeah.
So what was that?
Yeah. I've I struggled to, it's always weird to talk about yourself, but I kind of got a tongue lashing recently from a couple of people that are like, man, you got to like share more because
Yeah,
it's interesting.
yeah,
The Forrest Gump life, right?
yeah,
And I say, kid grew up in a trailer park in Nebraska, went to bed hungry plenty of times. Didn't really think we didn't know we were poor, right? We mostly because my wife would say I'm the biggest nerd stuck in a jock's body that you'll ever meet.
I love that.
Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, that's so true. And so I just got thrown into sports. And in middle school, I got tossed into a really high-end like Catholic school. And it was a shocker. I mean, I didn't even know what a brand name was, right? I didn't know what new stuff was. And that was just a total culture shock, right? I mean, there were parents that took a plane to go get a haircut. I was like, I've never been on a plane, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And my co-founder, who is the actual owner and spouse, Stephanie, she grew up in Wahoo, Nebraska, which is a tiny little town. Parents were teachers, and kind of, we just kind of say like we didn't know we were broke growing up. It didn't matter, but we definitely saw both sides of the coin. We met in college, and we just were both really kind of highly selected. We were just very engaged with our advertising marketing program, and we always did projects together because we executed well. We won a bunch of awards, and then we finally got together and we did the ad agency thing. We worked New York, San Francisco, Midwest, you name it. And the common thing, we originally were going to start an ad agency, right? And we're just kind of looking at the numbers, and I'm like, man, I'm so tired of like standing up in front of people and talking about air with like marketing and branding. And, I was like, I want to do this, but I need a physical thing that we can like measure against, because I just don't want to battle like, did it work? Did it not work?
Yeah.
Although I'm obsessed with branding and marketing, and it's easier now with all the, software and data and stuff, but it's still, challenging. So um, we kind of sat and talked it through, and we're like, whether it was like projects that we worked with together or separate, we have always been pulled into the actual physical product, right? Whether it was like Cobalt Tools and Lowe's, Nike Livestrong campaign. I mean, big things where, I tell people we both did two things. One, we always said, how could we help? And then we're always like the first one's in and the last one's out, right? And if you do that anywhere for long enough, like you're going to get shots at things, right?
Right.
My father always taught me, write your name huge on your helmet when you play football, right? And stand behind the coach that gets the angriest, because he will turn around and whoever's standing there will go in the game. And I'll tell you what, man, that got me on the varsity squad. That got me like every level of sports I played. Like that. Here's one weird little trick, but I got throttled. Yeah,
It's clickbait. This one weird trick will get you on the starting field.
So true, so true. I mean, I took a few butt kickings, that's for sure. Just prancing out on the field like Johnny on the spot. But you're memorable, right? You're the guy that'll always just go into battle. And so yeah, we were just like, we found it interesting that we were doing that. And also at the time, I had helped take a supplement company from about 3 million to 83 million in 3 years, and learned all about that, and really saw firsthand, like, man, if you get a product in somebody's hand to sample, like that's the fastest way to convert people. That's the whatever. So we launched Bulu Box. We raised capital. We had never done that. We raised in like 67 days, $1.5 million. It was wild. And we were basically shipping 4 to 5 premium vitamin supplement healthy snack products for $10 a month, and then you could come back and buy from us. And that thing took off. And we just couldn't kind of find the investors that were interested in this subscription box category at the time. And so we had these big brands knocking on our door, and honestly, like, to survive, we just said, well, we're not going to sell to you at that dollar amount. That's absurd. Which now I look back and I was like, 14 million was a lot. For Nebraska too, right?
Yeah.
But we were early on, and we didn't know any better, and we were building a software too at the time. But these big brands is kind of like, we're like, fine, we'll make you your own subscription box, and then we kind of dug in, and we saw the technology. This is 10 years ago, probably more like 7 years ago. The technology that these retail brands were using and the buyers were using was just mind-bendingly old. You know, we're
A lot of
talking
it is
old.
in-house. Like it's an
Yeah.
in-house system that they just built, homegrown systems. Yeah,
Yep.
and they're just
And they're using Oracle SA, whatever it is, and they're paying $250,000 for nothing, you know, and you're going like, hey, there's a 99-cent app that can do that 100 times better, you know. And I feel like we're like a company that kind of introduced a lot of those brands to like, you know, software stacks and APIs, you know.
yeah,
And so we go to these brands and we start doing it, and that just absolutely takes off. But the catch was from first call to the time that we were making money, it was about 18 months.
wow,
And it took a lot of people, a lot of time. And if at any point in time a big brand wanted something, they're always pulling in the top executives into that, you know. And in the ad agency world, you always want a couple of those big brands as flagship brands, but you want mid-grade clients, and then you want kind of like just starting, you know, you want a good portfolio mix. Well, the company value was just going through the roof because Disney, Clorox, just boom, boom, one after the other. And the pandemic hits, and kind of, you know, some of those brands just stopped, some of them froze, some of them increased. It was just kind of all over the map. And so we took a big step back and we're just like, hey, this, you know, our subscription box is great. The turnkey subscription box is great. Clearly, by selling this software, which became rangeme.com, you know, we understand what we need to do and what some brands have. And like, we know this way better than we think that we do. Let's make an offer and get this company under us 100% so we don't have to just slow down for anybody. And also, you know, servicing brands that they might not even be shipping yet, or they might be only shipping like 1,000 a month or 100 a month. That just wasn't in the cards, you know, for the executive board to go, hey, we're doing Disney, now we're going to do this, right?
yeah,
But deep down, we knew that like that is what we wanted to do. And it's so funny because if you really go back and you look at, it's like such a cliche, right? The biggest challenge that Bulu box, our subscription box, had was we could never deliver it where we wanted, how we wanted, the way that it was packed, and on subscription. And by working with all those big brands for, you know, 8, 9, 10 years, we figured out how to do that. And so we really looked kind of at each other probably around November of 2023. And we said, okay, if we hired a consultant, they're going to strip out everything but the key piece, right? What is it that we can do better than anybody else? Are we doing something that we don't even realize is that big of a deal? And it's embarrassing, but
yeah,
we had to go to conferences, we had to watch a lot of videos, go to a lot of websites, and it was like, you know, this thing that we can kind of sell anywhere and pack it anyway and use any sort of box, you know, their box, our box, like we don't care, right? And keep the shipping rates way down because we use all the carriers, we use all the softwares. And like, how did we get access to that? Well, everybody wants to work with Disney, right? Everybody
yeah,
wants to work with Clorox. So we pushed partners to do that for us. And so now we're sitting with this 100,000 plus premium warehouse, access to as many more warehouses as we want, and a software with these integrations. I think we have 140 pre-built where somebody starts a TikTok account, they plug it into the dashboard from Bulu, and you can start selling instantly. And the thing that we saw, um, I'll share this with you, and I'll be quiet here for a minute. We were kind of like saying it in different ways, and it just was not hitting, right? And you're
yeah.
just like, oh, like what is it you got to say? And you know, the joke tricky ship came up, and in that same conversation I was like, did you say shit? What did you say? And whenever people laugh, I always like really stop in a room because I swear the best ideas are laughed at first, and the hardest problem is when you hear this. Ugh. When you hear that, it is a problem that people have just chose to deal with. And so when I hear somebody laugh an idea and do that heavy breath,
Uh,
I am locked in, right? And so we kind of said that, and somebody goes, but people just call us and ask for shipping rates. Like that's not even what we do. And I go, somebody said, like, nobody really wants to talk to a 3PL or fulfillment company. That is my dog, Charlie. Sorry about
That's
that.
right.
She's hey, can we be quiet for a minute? Yeah, I'll juice up the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And so we're just like looking at this thing, going like, we have this, we have this. Like, what if we just simplify it down? And it was the moment that we recognized somebody at our desk was talking to an employee, and he was like, the world that you came from in logistics looks like this for like clocking in. And he's kind of explaining them like they weren't in trouble or whatever. And he goes, this is like a new world that we're telling you, like, it's okay. You can take off time to go pick up your kid. Your kid's daycare's heater turned off. Like, that's okay. Like, we can sort something out with that. And I heard him and I was like, oh, wow. We say hybrid hub and spoke logistics because that's what it is. We just call it the tricky ship because nobody wants to talk fulfillment. It sounds boring, right? But when we say and inform people and show people, you live and think in a traditional linear fulfillment world where you think it's just point A to point B. That's the old world. And the new world is, you want to do subscription in a theme park? Let's go. We have that built, right?
Yeah.
And that's when it really changed, was not just what we're doing, but explaining to people how, this is the world that you live in. And we had a client and he tried it and he was kind of not, it wasn't clicking for him. And his name was Ralph. I go, Ralph, man, I've sold a lot of consumer packages. I've done a lot. Here's what I would do if I were in your shoes. Pick up the phone to 100 independent retailers, find out if they got Shopify, Wix, whatever they have, find out what it is, then tell them you can drop ship and sell on their website. And if they want to sell your product, they can buy 2 lemons and 1 watermelon. They don't have to buy a case. They don't have to buy a pallet. They just have to put in the order. And he disappeared. And I was kind of like, well, that's going to be, back to sorting out the messaging or whatever. And then I just searched his name one day and he had 50 independent retailers in. And I was like, whoa, that was fast. And that's one of the many strategies, but that's probably the main strategy where, we have clients that are just posting on LinkedIn, like, got into this retailer, got into this. And it might be 5 stores or it might be 1 store, but just the last place anybody ever looked to increase sales was through logistics. And now you can have it at your fingertips, like EDI compliance, all of this stuff. I do say, we can't get you in Walmart. You got to sell yourself and your product. But when Walmart says, like, how are you going to handle this? You just give them our website and you'll be good. Right. And so, yeah, it's been a really fun to whittle it down to the basics and have that moment where you go, we're not telling people the world that that they're living in now. That's why this is hard, and just,
Yeah.
it's changed on a dime.
It is that thinking. I remember when I first got in this industry, I was amazed that, all the ingredients that you need, that Campbell Soup needs to make food, that's all in giant warehouses and cold storage and drums and everything.
Mm-hmm.
The Campbell Soup doesn't have all these ingredients sitting in their warehouse.
Right.
They're getting
Right.
it as they need it because all they can,
Yep.
down to the cans. So like the can business, you got to make 1,000,000 cans, but then you only need them 1,000 at a time. So it was like this behind the scene, it was the Wizard of Oz. Like,
Yeah.
to make a
Yeah.
can of soup, it's like, if I make soup, I got to have the chicken here, the whatever and everything. But bigger companies, it's not. And it is a hub and spoke. And they're, seasonings are coming from warehouse, and the
Yeah.
broccoli's coming from this warehouse, and chicken's coming from,
Yep.
and even not even like Foster Farms or those places, they don't have their own warehouse. So they're putting in somebody
Exactly.
else.
Yep.
So to have that, and it is, I watched this thing, John Corcoran had Peter Diamandis. It was an older podcast, but if you know who Peter, I didn't know who Peter Diamandis was, and I couldn't pronounce
Yes.
the name. So I had to
Yeah.
look it up. But he was talking about how our minds have developed in a linear way, or the linear thinking, because for millions of years,
Yes.
you could only walk, walking distance from your tribe was what you
Yep.
knew. But now it's not only hyper connected, it's changing. Like, the change that's going to happen in the next 10 years is more than what's going to happen in 100 years.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it takes a new way of thinking. So I could see where you could be explaining to somebody, because even, I'll admit it, I'm pretty sure I totally get it. Let's face
Yeah.
it, I totally get
Yeah.
it. But there's something that that's different. I mean, the way you're thinking, you're really taking advantage
Yeah.
and not just the technology, I think it's the relationships too. I think it
Yeah.
builds because that guy, when you're like, hey, look, Ralph, call 100 people, I think the first thing I'll think was like, you know what, Paul, you call 100 people.
Yeah.
That's kind of the
Yeah.
athlete in me too. Is like, okay, let's
Yeah.
see. But once you take a step back and say, well, this guy seems pretty smart, we'll pick up the phone. And then like you said, uh, so I wanted to so what were some of the conferences you went to? I'm gonna ask you one more question. Uh,
Yeah.
maybe it's sort of personal, but what are some of the conferences that you went to when you say, um, well, like what are the organizations? Like I've been involved in Warehouse Education and Research Council. Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
Work WERC.
I was going to say like IWLA, LMNOP, like they're all these
Well,
older ones.
So CSCMP it was when I got in the business, it was called CLM, which was Council
Yeah.
of Logistics Management. But once
Yeah.
I learned all the acronyms, they changed it to CSCMP, which
Yeah.
was Council of Supply
So
Chain Management
annoying.
Professionals.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what are some
The
of the ones?
Yeah, IWLA, any of the shipping logistics softwares that we used, we'd make it a point to go out to that. SUBTA, Subscription Box Trade Association. Now I'm blanking, but there's two or three acronym ones. And then actually like ECRM, that's one that comes to mind. But we went on straight up tours. So that was probably the most helpful. One of our investors had a cold storage and we got to watch it ground up be developed. And I would also say like in this industry, in the 3PL, if you were going to bucket us, I'm I was just shocked at how much none of the owners or founders like communicate and they have such a competitive mindset. And here I am, just I don't care. I'll call you. Like if we're competitors, like it doesn't
Yeah,
matter. I should also say in the pandemic, we went through a potential acquisition process and getting due diligence on some of the companies that were going to like acquire us, like really enlightened us. But getting on the floor is just always the best thing that you can do. And I'm talking like if it's a YouTube video, I mean, some of these like cell phone warehouse, like Amazon videos that know, 5 views,
yeah,
they're super enlightening. But getting down on the floor, I think the one of the big like aha moments was seeing how much paper was going around. And that's just inefficient, period. Right. And then seeing people that were trying to sell us software and I go, well, like we thought we were going to go more the robotics route. And I said, well, I want to go hit the floor and I want to go see what you're building. I mean, at one point I went out to Paris to go check out this product software or this product information inventory management software. And the thing that I feel like everybody was missing was like the people on the floor. And so you see these amazing systems and you see all this stuff. But like, man, if Kelsey can't use it, if Devin can't use it, if Brian can't use it, and I'm talking like my my rule of thumb is if the software is harder to use than the most popular social media app, then it's probably not a good software.
yeah,
Uh, and so, like, really ensuring that whatever we selected or whatever we do, like, we used to have a really elaborate scorecard that we'd review weekly. And that is now a Google Drive where people just log in and like punch in their numbers and they'll put the source of it. But like, that's about as easy as we can make it. And a lot of it is, can you flip out your phone and do it in like less than 30 seconds? And that was shocking how much that changed everything. And then our meeting structure, bringing in a lot of people on the floor. So I think maybe what I'm trying to say is, seeing how much people use paper, seeing how unwilling companies were to work with each other, but we would sort things out. I mean, we have straight competitors where they just do the storage and we do something else because like we don't care if the margin is there. And if somebody gets screwed over, sure, there's a contract in place, but the reality is you just stop working together.
yeah,
And then I think the third thing is like we really do, we won't do something unless the team on the floor gets it and involving them in meetings and really tying the string of like, here's our annual goal. And yes, it does matter that you're logging like the correct item orders. getting things out same day by 11 is a big deal. No errors, 99% accuracy. These are all a big deal. And I think once we kind of observed those things, no paper, really made sure people on the floor were comfortable, some training for them and involved, and really tied the numbers into like what we're going for. Everything just changed. And also like we deliver on it, right? Like we hit our goals, like we're sharing that with everybody. So it's shocking to people to be like, whoa, we packed faster. We actually got like a little bonus.
Yeah.
Like you didn't yell harder, you just explained it better. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
they take ownership. Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating how little it is, but
Yeah.
I think actually growing up in the scenario I did and having a father that was like chief of police and that background, just it really allows you, and working in New York and San Francisco, like I would say maneuvering back and forth between kind of that white collar and blue collar and understanding how to talk to both sides is probably why our upper management is able to do what we do.
So that's a great segue into my one of my last questions. I really wanted to ask you this, as I saw on your personal website, you have an email list, and it says, I'll stick to the thing. I'll try to stick to the things I know, which is fulfillment, entrepreneurship, and self-awareness. And I'd love
Yeah.
for you to share about the self-awareness. I'm a huge self-awareness guy. I have a master's degree in holistic health education. And
Yeah.
like guys like us aren't supposed to be talking about
Yeah.
self-awareness and stuff like that.
Dude, I'm cool with it, man. This all this, I'll curse a little bit here. You might
Yeah.
have to believe, but like all this like masculinity bullshit that we grew up with, like it's not doing us any favors now,
Yeah.
And like, to me, it was very strict in our house where everybody's treated the same, like it was just my dad was one of those dudes where he was the good cop, right? Like
Yeah.
he was that guy that it didn't matter if you were alcoholic homeless on the streets or you were the governor of the state or whatever, like you're getting treated the same, period. And I think that running a business and also sports, I did like MMA and I played college football, and everybody kind of wants you to be a stereotype, so you like they almost feel more comfortable around
Yeah.
you, I
Yeah.
feel like. And I just remember when we started the company early on, my wife kind of caught me one morning, and we were at the peak of our game 3 years in, and we're winning awards and we're making a ton of money and all this stuff. And she caught me like Sunday morning at my computer, like, cursing, like whatever. And she's like,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 what's going on here? Like I was like, oh, sorry. And she goes, you were talking to yourself. I was like, I don't talk to myself. Do I? Wait, what? No, there's no voices in my head. She's like, no, you knucklehead. Like internally was, kind of coming out. And I kind of was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Right? I'm 42 now. This is like when I was like 30, 31, maybe.
Uh-huh.
And she goes, let's just go on a walk here. You need to like just like crank it down a few notches. It's Sunday morning. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so we go on this walk, and she said something along the lines like, she's like, I notice when you work out, like you just get angry, like you lift weight. And she's like, the whole time, even going to the gym and after the gym, like you're kind of angry. And I'm like, yeah, I was a D lineman. I was just taught to murder, kill, rip heads off, and like, and she's like, well, what are you thinking when you're doing a rep or whatever? And I'm like, oh, come on, you wiener,
Yeah.
one more rep, like, are you kidding me? You can do better than this, whatever, all this like
Yeah.
just terrible self-deprecating stuff. And she goes, really? That's like every time? And I'm like, yeah. Like it was a good thing. I go, wait, what do you say to yourself? And she's like, good job. You know, um, you did it one more than you thought you could, do your best, like whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and her family is like coaches and quarterbacks. I'm like, quarterback families,
Yeah.
And she goes, no, no, no,
Line.
no, no, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we were kind of talking some more, and it just kind of like hit me of like, okay, I see the two different families that we have, and my family's awesome. I love them to death, but like you talk smack, you might get backhanded, like that's how my old man rules, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That was an
and
era. I mean, that's
yeah,
what
and it was
grew
like,
up with.
don't touch it, you're gonna break it, it was just very, strict, and it makes sense when you have a police chief for a father, right? But then I saw her family, and there was just much more diverse, productive teachers, lawyers, doctors, and they all were like national championship quarterbacks. I mean, just ridiculous accolades. And I'm like, okay, there might be something to this. And my wife looks at me and we're kind of talking this out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm willing to change. Like, we had just recently got married. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And she goes, no, I really need you to listen to me right now. And she goes, think about it like this. Would you ever speak? And she knows who mattered the most in my life. She goes, would you ever speak to your little sister like that? And I go, no, no. I'm like, well, maybe a little, I'd bust your
Yeah,
chops, but like, no. And
yeah,
she goes, would you ever speak to your mother like that? And I'm like, no, never. Like she deserves better,
yeah,
and this, that, and the other thing. She goes, would you ever speak to me like that? And I was like, no, hell no. And I kind of regret that you heard me. And she goes,
yeah,
then why are you speaking to the most important person in the world that way? And I was like, process, and dude, I'm telling you what, I fell to the ground sobbing straight up. And I was like, my brain, I go, I think I got the flu or something. My stomach is killing me. Like, she goes,
yeah,
no, you're realizing how awful you've been to yourself for so long. And this is just emotion coming out. And I'm like crying, like, what the
yeah,
heck? Oh, you just never
yeah,
kind of see me like that or whatever. And I tell people, I'm like, I'm not super experienced with emotion. So I'm probably the ugliest crier you'll ever meet in your life. But from that moment on, I mean, it really launched me into like understanding that and trying to sort it out, and getting into like neuroplasticity and how to train yourself to think different ways. And what I tell people, and I've given some presentations on this, it's about 30% of the population kind of speaks to themselves in not the greatest manner. And it can get you so far, probably quicker than a lot of things, but
yeah,
it's not a stable foundation mentally to build on.
yeah,
And so I say, for me, it's just one of those things where I get intense and I get a bit more of a competitive kill mentality, like go, go, go. And I just have to like pace myself a little bit and like just self-reflect at the end of the day. And I've done all the meditation, I've done, anything you name, I've tried it. And it's just in that moment of tension, going like, breathe here, think for a minute, like what is actually the best thing to do. And so many times for me, it's like, yeah, let's just like put a pin in it right here and like let's go talk about it tomorrow. And it's just incredible how much stuff gets sorted out when you take a little bit of time like that. And
yeah,
99% of the time, and it's very rare that happens anymore because I've been just practicing it for so long, but more times than none, it's like, oh, I wasn't frustrated at that thing. It was five other things. And that was just the thing that was in my line of fire. And I'm forever grateful to her and frankly, like my team. And the thing that definitely has made it all worth it, because I would say it's easy to make a lot of money when you do this if you're okay with, being crummy to yourself and everybody else around you. But like in the end, like what does it really matter? You're not taking it with you. And the biggest thing that I had no clue that it would be such a positive outcome on is um, having kids and catching that early on.
yeah,
And when they say, "Oh, I suck at that," and I mean, they're 7 and 4. It's just society kind of
yeah,
trains a lot, and you go, "No, no, no." Just say, "I'm not good at that yet. How about that?" And
yeah,
maybe you don't ever want to be good at that, but just switching that around. People are blown away by our kids, but that's like what made it all worth it, is because even though it's something that I'm going to always have to work on, I'm okay with that. I'm cool with talking about it. I think it's the most like human, masculine, feminine. I think it's the most badass thing you can do
yeah,
is like share it with people, because
yeah,
it really can change people. And if that isn't worth it, like the impact that I think it will have generations and generationally, That's really cool. And that's where just like magic happens, because you throw a little momentum on that positivity and people just, it turns into a magnet, right? People just
Yeah.
want to be around that. So yeah, all credit to her. Who knows what I'd be doing.
Yeah. My wife is, it's the same way. It's that, working, it's an intimate relationship. What I see is like my wife can see me making a mistake like way ahead of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
don't go down that. But thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think, self-awareness is it's huge. It's something that, and it never, like you said, it's continual process. And I have a
Mhm.
lot of the same things. I mean, being trained as an athlete, everything's a competition. Being right is important. And, being where you said you're going to be at the thing. And it's like everything's life or death. That's the other thing too. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, this is when you
Yeah.
walk onto a football field or martial arts training, there's a click, right? Something clicks. And it's
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
I used to play adult basketball until I was about 50. And I'd always say, I'm just going out there to have fun, just going to get a good workout in, kind of
Yeah.
play. But as soon as I ran on the court, all that went away. It was like, win at all costs. So,
Yeah.
everything.
That's why I don't play any of those.
And so I stopped. Yeah,
Everybody,
I
I can't
stopped.
even watch sports. I can't watch sports. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to either get hurt or hurt somebody. And
Yeah.
so I got to find other ways to stay in shape.
Yep.
So,
There you
Paul,
go.
this has been amazing.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
What's the best way for you, for people who are going to reach out to you from the podcast? What's some of the best ways to get in touch, or your ideal client? Like, how are they getting a hold of you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're pretty open to speak to anybody, and we get people reaching out to us, not just for services, but I do the podcast thing and the speaking events thing. And we have bulugroup.com. This always feels pretentious and narcissistic, but there's pauljarrett.com. I have to call it pj.com.
I love your personal website. It's good. It's tastefully done.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks, man.
okay.
But I just tell people like, man, if you've made it this far listening to what I'm babbling about, just drop me an email. It's just paul@bulugroup.com. And it might take me a minute to get to it, but no, I appreciate anybody that's made it this far and appreciate your time. And yeah, it's always fun to connect. And, sometimes we can help people out, sometimes we can't. But what we do pride ourselves in, and why we're still around after so long, is we always try to put people in a position with the right company. So 9 out of 10 of our calls don't go anywhere. But it pays dividends when you just play matchmaker, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but always interested to connect with people.
Okay, that is awesome. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
for joining us. This has been awesome.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Have an awesome day, man.
All right, you too.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.